record this. Hello, everybody. I'm Simon Boxer. I am the creative director at Twice Different. We also have Fluto, Vertex, and Ruben joining us in the chat today. We're going to run you through our upcoming features and roadmaps and exciting things that, we want to hear what you think about content so we can build it appropriately and make the best thing that we can, and the most appealing thing for the people that are playing, which is you watching. Unless you haven't bought it yet, in which case you should buy it and join us. Support us, because this is what helps us keep making content for you all. And we do appreciate everyone that's shared and supported and bought and all that good stuff. Tell your friends about this game. So, alright. Let's jump into some road mappery. Gonna do the first things that we're looking at. So the way we're going to sort of structure this is we haven't set specific timeframes for the distant future stuff, but we are going to be drawing from the pool of all of the things that we could do into what we focus for the next updates. And what we're working on at the moment, as we've mentioned to some of the people in Discord and on Steam probably, is we've got a few new items that are in the beta branch currently. One of the things that's not in is the non-random stat boost. So a lot of the feedback that we were getting around launch was basically tuning of randomness. And this is something that we planned to do that didn't make it in for launch, that we are really excited and keen to do. And so non-random stat boost is going to act sort of like it's almost like a chest, but for stats. So you will get like a stat type that drops in the ring instead of the random stats. Currently, it just randomly drops a clarity, attack, speed, defense, or health, or a cursed stat. And instead of that, we will be dropping like one of a type of stats that might be like, choose one of three to get +1/+2, choose one of three to get +2/+2, or like compromise kind of ones that help you build, or well, not help you, but like force you to think about where you want to build, or like what kind of playstyle or archetype you want to build your character in that run into. So that would be things like, choose a bigger bonus for one stat and get like -1 to all other stats, or things in that kind of domain where it's forcing you to choose which sort of like path you want to min-max in a way. It's still probably, it's not going to be complete min-maxing, of course, just because of the game structure that we have, but this is the goal for the non-random stat boost, is to help people focus a bit better. And we think that will work a lot better into the future plans for item iteration as well. And we've got some questions. Is there any tease for the amount of new items that will be added? So for this first update, we've already got a bunch of new items in the beta branch. So if you're on Steam PC, you can already access our beta and try some of the new items. And I don't actually know exactly how many there is. I think there's like 5 to 10 new items in the beta branch currently. There's a bunch scoped, but yeah, it really depends how many get balanced and translated in time. So like translation is a big is the main hold up between things being in beta and being in release. Like we need to make sure it's all translated properly, and that means it needs to be balanced first. So after balancing items, there's like a week or however long it takes to translate into all the languages phase before we can actually release it to the public as a public build. So yes, non-random stat boost is something I'm really excited about, and I'm interested to see how this will affect the game. It will probably make it, in some ways, like it gives you more agency over what you're doing. So it should make it easier, which means we can make the other parts of it harder because it's a much more focused challenge. We can, craft it so the more agency you have, to deal with like the difficulty, the more hard we can make it. We can add more sort of like difficult challenge modes as well in the future. And the other thing, of course, is new achievements. And some of these are also in the beta currently, so you've already seen some of the new achievements. And this is sort of what we're working on right now. Yeah. I mean, jump into the beta if you want to see it, see a preview. Otherwise, you can wait till it's all polished and get the full release. Lump sum payment of new content. So we're aiming to have this update out this month, at the end of this month, and yeah, it's tracking pretty well. So after the current features. Excuse me just a second. So, hello Lemon Suckler, welcome in. And welcome everybody that's joining the chat. Please feel free to ask questions at any time you wish. I should not blur that again. So we've run through the Specialist update, which is our upcoming update, with a nice little focused amount of content that will help you specialize. In the builds that you want. After the Specialist update, what we're going to be looking at is, well, first up we've got gameplay statistics in the works. So player stats, basically a stats page to track your run, well, not run history, but like all of your lifetime statistics of playing Ring of Pain will be there, so you can see, wins and losses in each mode, and your accomplishments, and your willingness to donate coins into the wishing well. You can see all of these good things on a gameplay stats screens. It'll give you stats for creatures that you're interacting with, and runs, and all the good stuff. People like numbers. Well, some people like numbers. Numbers aren't for everyone, I guess. Some people like pictures. I like pictures. As well as gameplay stats menu, which will be probably grouped with... It'll be grouped with like collection probably to start with, or maybe a whole new menu section that we'll build out with more stuff. We're also aiming to add some more content. And so I guess when I'm looking at these categories of updates, we're trying to chunk it into, like, I suppose things that we can do in a quarter of a year. So like the Specialist update can come out late this month, and then next up we'll try and do something within the next couple months. Ideally by Christmas, if we can make that happen. And it'll each update we want to like add some more game content. So game content is the kind of stuff that will be coming consistently as we update. So new rooms, new creature types, new items is stuff that we want to consistently add as we update, and new daily dungeon modifiers. Yeah, the wishing well was the thing that you were thinking about with gameplay stats. Yes, well, that's one stat that's not really recorded anywhere at the moment, and so yeah, that's going to be a good home for where you can see your wishing well interaction. Question: post nerf, does Light Concoction still have the highest win rate? I tend to think maybe... Well, I don't have stats on win rates per item at the moment, although that would be an interesting update to the stats that we have planned. We potentially intend to show stats for the number of times you equip items, so you might be able to see like, oh, you're always taking Light Concoction basically, or always like hunting for Light Concoction, and so you might personally have equipped that more than any other legendary. But yeah, I'm not sure about exact win rates per item. And also keyboard hotkeys is something that we want to include in the next sort of snippet of update. So I suppose this this next phase of update will be kind of more focused on building out the world a bit, just with a bit of new content, and over time we'll, as we can, gradually trickle in more world content, the game will grow and it will facilitate other modes as well. Oh yeah, I would say yeah. Actually, Ruben's got a good point. I think Upgrade Scroll has probably got one of the highest win rates, and Polearm is definitely a crowd favorite at the moment. Elwyn Boo, how often can we expect updates on the beta branch? I think the beta branch will be updated much more frequently than the main game, but we don't have a schedule for it. It's really just when it's ready. So main game updates will probably do something like fortnightly, or yeah, we'll probably aim for fortnightly for just general patching and updates and stuff, and then we'll be grouping this bigger content update together when it's ready, and that'll also be coming to Switch. Yeah. Alright, so let's move on. Hello, Sir Gamer. You got the game yesterday. Thank you for buying our game. And you're wondering if there's a wiki for it yet. I think someone might be working on that. I know someone was working on a Chinese wiki. I'm not sure if there's like a general English language wiki. But you should join us on Discord, because that's a great place to ask that question. A lot of community-made content has our creators on Discord or on Steam forums. The Slice is asking, do a lot of people struggle with misclicking? You often find yourself skipping or attacking when you wanted to do the other. There's a few people that have talked about it, but I wouldn't say it's an overall struggle for people. With keyboard hotkeys, that might help your misclicking, because we want to add, a fast hotkeys like left or right for passing, or A and D for passing, and then perhaps we can add some hotkeys for the front cards or something. But if separating sort of front card clicking from left and right passing, that should help misclicking a bit. Yeah, thanks for joining us on Discord, and yeah, it's a great platform. And yes, there's a frog zone on Discord where you can post all the frogs. Any chance of a speed up button? We have some options planned for speeding up the game in general, which is mostly like fast reroll and reducing animation time. Potentially we could add a speed up button. That's an interesting suggestion. Maybe I should add a point at the bottom for let me just add another note for suggestions. Actually, I'm just going to put it in a side document that I'll keep track of. Yeah, so if anyone has suggestions as well when we get to under consideration especially, it would be interesting to hear. Speed up button. At the moment we've been hesitant to... We want to make it like as fast as possible within the bounds of still showing people what's happening, because if it gets too fast, like, you lose track of what's going on, and people start to not understand, why they might have died or things like this. So it's been a communication thing up to this point. Frog vs dog? Definitely frog. That's no question. No question at all. Alright, so we've gone through... This will probably round out the year, basically. This year's worth of content, or maybe like into early next year, will be the new items that we've got in beta at the moment, the choosable stat boosts, achievements, gameplay statistics UI, some new rooms, some new creatures, new daily dungeon modifiers, and keyboard hotkeys. So this is basically a sort of holistic iteration on the content that we have now, where adding a bit in every category sort of thing, and still refining the general consistency of runs as well, and doing some tuning work. Alright, so long term, now we're starting to get into some of the more interesting stuff because these are the bigger features. Actually, before I talk about long term, I'm going to answer this question. Earthman asks, what type of new rooms have we got? Shrines, maybe? Please, more legendary item shrines. Maybe a clarity themed one. Maybe a frog shrine. The new rooms are going to be probably a mix. We might add a new shrine type room. I'm pretty keen to add some more challenging rooms like the Shrieker room or like Patience. So like rooms which are identified by some bigger creature within them. And I think that could be quite interesting. Because eventually we want to have a lot of these sort of... I guess they're kind of like elite encounters in other roguelikes. Eventually we're going to have a lot of that kind of stuff to add variety to runs. And also things which could test different types of builds. So yeah, like more threatening kind of creatures which are... have their own specialties and strengths and weaknesses. The Slice, you've bought the game for 3 people. Wow, thank you. That's really generous and much appreciated. That is we are super lucky to have someone like you in the community. Showing it to not only showing it to their friends, but buying it forcing it upon their friends. That's awesome. That's incredible. And yeah, I mean that money's going to go towards making more stuff for everyone. So great. Cheese Hero, you feel like your success is mostly based on good RNG. Rather than skill expression. Are there any mechanics in development that would allow for more skillful play? So yeah, the RNG thing is an interesting one because there's a lot of people that feel like RNG is a dominant factor here, and it's something that I don't personally feel because I feel like we give a lot of mitigating ways to deal with situations, but there are definitely issues inside this question. So there's legitimate like problems that we are working on features to solve. So like the non-random stat boost is going to it's going to make stat boost basically not like the randomness in stat boost is going to be pretty much negligible after this, and that's one of the main like character building sources of randomness. So this month we will have a solution for that. Improving the scroll utility and usage is also something that we want to do to help give players more agency, even more agency over scrolls. So this could be things like, letting you discard scrolls or like cast one before picking up another, or it could potentially even be more scroll slots. So we're still looking into what it could be like. It could turn into something that's more like Slay the Spire, where you've got potion slots. I mean, we don't want to make the game like Slay the Spire, obviously. We're not making a Slay the Spire like. This is a very different game. But in terms of having like scrolls function in the game is kind of like it's kind of like an emergency utility. So similar to potions in Slay the Spire. So we could better lean into that role with potions. Are we planning on making the dungeons longer or only adding stuff to the levels that are already there? We're definitely... So, all of these questions are leading really well into the long-term stuff. We want to add a new game mode that's longer. We want to add a new game mode that facilitates the more hardcore players like yourselves. And also, feel free to make suggestions and give feedback. We love feedback, and if there are things that you are craving, like particularly with the randomness thing, if it's hard to know exactly why people are sort of like coming away with this impression of not having control over the runs. But it's definitely if they're like, we definitely want to investigate what is creating that feeling, and maybe it's simply that it's harder to identify exactly where things are going wrong. Like, because there's a lot of foresight. There's a deceptive amount of foresight needed to play the game and to plan, especially in late game, where you need to think 3 or 4 moves ahead. And sometimes, if you are just sort of focusing, if players like are just focusing on on the front cards, then it's easy to lose track of like the actions they should have done before that, which would have got them out of a situation that feels like it might have been unfair, or it might have been like hard to predict, even though we always give you the tools to see what's going on in the game. There could be a lot of communication issues going on. It could be like, we need to better communicate when and how to observe what creatures are doing in the ring, and how to predict and work around their current, behaviors. Because we've got this dynamic, fast-paced game that's deceptively simple. Like, we really want to make it accessible. We really want to make it easy to get into. And when you put out something that's like really fast to play, you can really whip through it. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how it should be played. And you can easily fall into the trap of just trying to smash through everything and then winding up in a situation that could have been avoided a couple of moves earlier, kind of thing. The explosive slimes, you feel like really good skill execution. Yeah, this kind of thing. So I really like the idea of using the dungeon against itself. And it's also kind of what the Shrieker works into quite well. So the Shrieker is like, the AoE damages the earthquake monster, damages everything in the ring. That kind of thing. That's like a blatant use the game against itself sort of mechanic. And you can sort of juggle damage across other creatures to make sure you get the most usage out of the Shrieker. Really, the game boils down into resource management and how you can best coordinate your moves with what's going on in the dungeon. Just having a quick look at questions. Yeah, and re-rolling is also very important for mitigating the situations you're in with like building the character. But there is definitely improvements that we want to do with the re-roll mechanic, and there's a lot that we want to tune. Basically, I think we've got a good basis for tuning as well. Is there any reason to not open up daily modifiers to let people just apply them in regular runs? Yeah, so all right, let me talk about this long-term stuff, because this is bleeding into some of these questions. The new game mode could be kind of things like that, where it's layering challenge on top. It's layering modifiers. It could be a number of things. So this isn't the whole stuff that I've got to show you. I'll just run through the long term. So new game mode is something that we definitely want to add, and we're already working on sort of the bones of what could become a new game mode. Creature Bestiary. This is a no-brainer. Like, so many people have asked for a Bestiary, and yeah, this is going to happen. You'll be able to see more info on each creature, maybe a bit of lore. They're definitely like stats related to creatures. Improve scroll utility and usage. So like I was saying before, giving people the ability to potentially cast one and then pick up the other, or discard one, or maybe have multiple scroll slots. Show creature abilities and stats. Yeah, we definitely need to get the creature's secondary sort of abilities on the creature cards in their stat menu. So this is things like showing how much explode damage it does, showing which creatures are poisonous, how much poison they apply per hit, explaining intimidate in the card and this kind of thing. We already have this stuff in the tooltips, in the hover tooltips, but I think it will really help to make these actual sort of stat icons and stuff like that. So, alrighty, let's move on to the juicy next stuff. If I can, let me just bring in, oh, here we go, under consideration. Alright, under consideration. We're on to the next phase, the final form. The feel you get from the games that you're scraping through until you get your first legendary, at which point the game becomes a breeze. Do we think there needs to be some balance adjustments for the power difference of tier items? I think this is not necessarily a bad thing. I think feeling like you're struggling and then getting relief is actually good for the player experience in a lot of situations. It can't be just an instant win. Like, no legendary should give you an instant win, and I don't think any legendary does give you an instant win at the moment. You still need to have other things coupled with it, but we're always going to be improving this feeling. Like, we want to give people the feeling of struggle and then overcoming that, and feeling power, because everything needs to be relative. If the whole game is a flat line, there's no sort of emotional curve. Like, you can't get invested in something that's the samey. It's just something you're doing. And so if you need to struggle to get to the point where you can finally overcome things, I think that's pretty good, personally. But yeah, over time, we want to sort of rein in the outliers. We definitely don't want things so extremely powerful that it is an instant win. Alright, let's look at the under consideration section. Challenge mode, endless mode, new potions, mid-game save, more bosses, meta progression, custom seed run, redemption. Okay, I'm just going to go through it one by one now. So with a new game mode, and Berber just asks, right in time, any chances of adding harder and harder difficulties? Right on cue. So the new game mode we're looking at long term and we're currently working on could be one of multiple things. So it could be like a challenge mode. A challenge mode, we're imagining, could be something like a mode that scales over time, that starts easy, that's not endless, it's still fixed, but it could be like a mode that's crafted to have a boss every, X levels, and split into a more like a 3-part structure or something like that, with a boss at each part. Or it could be like a run where you're gradually accruing modifiers that change the game as you play. So you could have, like, this would pair with something like the shop redesign. We could have a modifier shop that you choose, sort of like player perks, player abilities as you play the game, which stack up and sort of change the mechanics of the game. And that could be really interesting. And so the challenge mode, the intent of any new mode that we add is basically to extend the replayability, to make it more interesting for people that are really familiar with the mechanics and to really test their skills. So something that can start easy enough to be accessible for the average player, but ramp into like a real challenge for everyone. This is the goal of the modes, and any new mode is going to be iterated on over time. So it's always going to be an iterative process. Like, we're never going to nail anything in the first attempt at doing it. So this is why we're sharing with all of you and giving and receiving feedback to better understand what you want from the game, and also how we can craft it to suit all of the types of players, because there's a lot of players that also come in and aren't hardcore players, and we need to provide the best experience for everyone. So it's a constant juggling act. So that could be a challenge mode. And let me look at some questions. Endless mode seems interesting. Would you be able to get the high stat achievements in it? Potentially. That's kind of undecided at the moment. It depends which mode we add, because it might make more sense to just make achievements unlockable in the main mode. But it really depends how it ends up. I'm just going to look back through other questions. Yeah, and struggle is a key to the identity of the game. Exactly. Yep. You've been grinding dark difficulty lately, and you feel like once you get to floor 5 to 6, it gets a lot easier. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting observation. Yeah, there's all sorts of different reports between different players. Like there's all these different sort of like meta like points in the game that are identified by different groups of players. Some people are like, oh, it really like spikes at this particular level or that particular level, and I'm kind of glad there's difference in opinion, because it means we've provided different people different challenges, which is really cool. Bring a pain merch when... Yeah, I mean, I'd love to make some merch. I've actually got some like pins for the frog and the owl. I really need to make a shop for them. That would be awesome. It will probably be after Melbourne lockdown properly ends, because we're all working remotely at the moment, and it's hard to coordinate this kind of stuff. Hey Alex, thank you for buying and playing our game. You got into the beta, see new stuff, and you like item synergies. Yeah, cool, good, excellent. We're still tweaking some of those. Alright, so let's continue through our under consideration list. So another direction that we could take the new game mode is an endless mode. So this would be more like a spiral of pain, I guess. It would be more like a prestiging kind of mode, I suppose, where you'd be playing through similar, like you'd play the game and then be able to prestige it kind of thing, and keep prestiging it until it just gets like overbearing, or until it just gets too extreme for you, basically. And then that would be a scored mode as well, so we'd at least have a way to track your own personal score, potentially with a leaderboard. Who knows? Alright, and new potions. Another thing we want to do. So we already have a potion from the community. Like, we ran a potion design competition on Discord, and if anyone here isn't in our Discord, yeah, feel free to join us. discord.gg/ringofpain. And yes, we're going to be trying to run events again soon. We were running regular events up until launch, where we just got completely overwhelmed by launch, and it's been amazing. And one of the new potions that will come will be the prize winner of this Discord event. And it would be cool to have like more variety in potion design, and potentially even turning it into a choosable potion kind of mechanic where you can adapt to the situation you're in, potentially. It's all up under consideration. Mid-game save as well. This has been requested by quite a few people, and we will be aiming to find a time to put in the mid-game save. Let me type the Discord link in here. Dun. Ideas for new potions. What was the one that won the thing? Let me have a quick look. The potion that won. And some of the potion designs, some potion designs that we've thought about at this point is things like potions that can damage things in the ring rather than being a heal, like using it as utility for damage kind of thing. The potion which won the competition is Space Cat's Potion of Pain, which, once drunk, puts your current health to 1, and for each 3 health lost, gives a random stat. We might tweak the design to be less random, like some of this stuff needs iterating on, but this is the one that won our events. There are also other suggestions like Little Diggy's Full Synthesis, consume potion to gain the stats of a randomly selected equipped item. And One Day's Unstable Potion, deal X damage to every creature in the ring, including the player. So that was kind of like the damage one that was the damage one I just mentioned. Alright, moving on. So, more bosses. Another thing that we would love to do, but also takes a lot of time. So yeah, every boss that's crafted is quite an undertaking, and a lot of testing and tweaking is involved in making a boss. But we would love to make more encounters, more boss-like encounters. We think that they're really fun and a nice challenging. It's yeah, and you could do some really cool thematic stuff with them. But for the amount of work, it's kind of like less replayable than making other content. So it's something that we need to consider. How much value does it add? Is it worth focusing on making boss encounters when they can be learnt quite easily, and then you know, we could have spent more time on multiple little things that could give a greater challenge potentially, but are less thematic. But bosses are really cool. Everyone agrees the bosses are really cool. So, meta progression. This could also tie into another sort of challenge mode. So one way, or an endless mode. So one way that challenge mode could also pan out is kind of like distinct challenges. Like divide it into, say, it's a gameplay mode, and the idea of these extra modes is that they're not. They take out the narrative, so it's more like mechanical challenge. And playing these is more like a skill tester. Oh, I mean, it's all a skill tester, but these are even more so along that line. It's purely about like the gameplay focus and the challenge of it. And so meta progression might be things like we have all these different ways to complete the game, or like to play it with a game changer modifier, sort of like achievements, like you know, like play it with, I don't know, any sort of game changer, like the pass buttons do something completely different now, or things like that, or like cards are linked somehow, and the mechanics of the game change, and you could play through different like styles of the game. I guess I imagine it kind of like the way Blizzard does like the brawl modes, or like their weird game changery modes in Hearthstone or like Overwatch, where you're just basically playing a different game. I'm gonna have to look at some questions. Would bosses mean new endings, or bosses added to the current endings? So the current game is kind of like what I see as the story of the story game. We probably wouldn't extend the main base game. We would make these into separate experiences that are more mechanically focused, and then more divided by bosses potentially. Yeah, a amalgam boss could be pretty funny, and also unstoppable potentially. Amalgam's like one of the most brutal creatures in the game, especially in the lightnings. Once they get going, they are unstoppable. I was thinking bigger than elite enemies. So elite, we want to add elite kind of enemies in the new rooms, but the bosses would be bigger. They'd be like multi-state creatures, like Owl. All right, so custom seed runs. Custom seed runs would basically be, for a game mode, we let you choose the seed that you want to play, so you can compare your game to a friend. Maybe you can challenge your friend to play that seed and see how you go, see how you compare, seed how you compare. Damage type improvements. Let me extend my old Steamo so I can read more questions. Maybe with the Bestiary, a more fleshed out item info, kind of like an in-game wiki. Yeah, I think it would be more like that. It's more detailed about the monster and also has stats. It might not be as fleshed out as you're imagining, but definitely want it to be more insightful about the creatures. Oh yes, and people want an art book. Oh gosh, I'd love to do all this physical media stuff. Art book would be awesome. It's just so expensive to produce anything that's not digitally distributed, especially from Australia with all the extra like import-export taxes. It's really difficult. This would be like a long-term thing. Maybe I could do a digital art book at some point, or like prints or something. Alright, so damage type improvements. This would be like basically doing a really thorough pass on the damage types that we have to as part of the tuning pass. So it would be like light and dark and soul. Oh, not dark, but like light and soul damage, and well, potentially adding more like working curse into it more and this kind of thing. Really part of the item tuning process. And it would also potentially involve like adding resistances to monsters, so we could potentially create creatures that have resistances. So it means you're trying to anticipate and build your character in a way that can deal with all different threats throughout the game as you progress. And maybe there's some areas that you just need to, get out of dodge, like just get through as fast or like as safely as you can until you can get to a part that you can actually handle. I think that would be very interesting. So let's move on. Dark damage confirmed. It was originally on the list, to be honest. Light and dark damage, soul damage, but yeah, maybe. Dark damage. I don't think it really makes sense at this point. Like curse is more interesting, I think. Steam Workshop, modding support, this kind of thing. We would all love to do Steam Workshop. We would love to make Steam Workshop functionality or like some modding functionality. It's really hard to build it in from this point though, which is why it's in under consideration. We would love to do all sorts of stuff. Things that we've thought about include user-generated dungeons, putting your art into the game, substituting art in, maybe being able to tweak numbers. It really depends, because it's a really big task to make Steam Workshop. But also on that note, we would love to hear what you think about mod support and what kind of things that you would want to be supported. Key mapping extends from keyboard hotkeys, so the first pass of keyboard support is basically going to be, making it have shortcuts. And then keyboard mapping will be being able to rebind that stuff and probably partner with like controller mapping as well. Player UI for temporary effects is adding, this is probably pretty necessary. This is adding all of the temporary effects to the player's stats bar. So like when you've got splash damage, when you've got, to show your curse resistance more easily potentially, or showing that you have knockback at the moment, things like that. The amount of reflect damage that you have equipped. A way to easily see this stuff at a glance without making the UI too complicated. So at the moment we don't expose that so much. And it's not really been a complaint of people, but we do want to make it clearer. We do want to better communicate all of these like mechanics that are getting built up, and so that you don't have to remember all of the individual things. Game over UI improvements. Yeah. So this, another thing being considered is what kind of extra details we want to add to game over. We could potentially have like the path that you traveled show sort of like more stats for your run, more details. Basically a revamp, a sprucing of the game over UI to make it more interesting and relevant. And then the old juicy story content. A lot of people like lore, a lot of people play for lore. It's hard to know the balance between people playing for like story versus playing for mechanics and just the challenge. But it would be cool to make a story mode, like another story to tell, or expand the story that we have. And that could be what the new game mode becomes. It depends what people want, really. Card reveal mechanics. So this would be like turning reveal into a more granular effect. So reveal in the game currently is just like reveal all cards or nothing. Or like the one card around you. And so this would be kind of like working in a mechanic that's sort of like Fog of War and making revealing cards a bit more strategic and important. So you could have a reveal range from you by equipping like, you know, +1 reveal range or whatever. And then you could see more cards around the ring. This would help with things like polearm. And we could also build more monster designs that work with reveal mechanics. So things that trigger when they reveal, or maybe cards hide themselves after being revealed, or things like that. I think that would be a really interesting path to explore with adding a sort of new region that feels distinct. Shop redesign. So shop redesign, over time, over the course of development, the shop has become a bit less and less useful because it's so strict with it doesn't give you enough options basically. So we want to switch the shop into being something a bit more interesting eventually, or maybe just add other types of shops. So having a modifier shop could be interesting, like I talked about before. A modifier, modifiers that can sort of change the game. They're like player passives, I suppose. Player perks that we would add on top and layer up. The reveal Fog of War sounds really, really good, but could make it a lot easier. It's hard to know without actually having tested it. I think the mechanics that we would add if doing a reveal mode, we would need to add creatures that serve us doing that. And so I don't think like there's certainly situations that would be made easier, but there's also things that would be made a lot harder. So we can make it a much more thoughtful, like if you reveal something, like something bad happens, then you need to think a lot more about where you're moving around the ring, or what your reveal distance is and how to play in relation to your current reveal situation, or your current like Fog of War situation, basically. So I don't think it's something that can really be judged without testing it, and all of this stuff would need testing to see if it actually works. Like we could commit to doing something and then it just is terrible, and so it won't get released. Like none of the features that we're talking about are guaranteed to be released. This is what we are working on, and this is where we're trying to steer the project with your guidance, of course. And if it works, it works, and we'll ship it. But if it's something that we prototype and it just falls apart, then no, it's not going in. Like if it did make everything really easy, we wouldn't put it in, because it all needs to provide a challenge. Everything that we make needs to provide a challenge. Yeah, yeah, things like reveal raging creatures. Yeah, just having a look at the old questions. You could put a reveal with a waiter turn? Yeah, potentially. Yeah, you could do all sorts of stuff. Sweet. All right, and more features on Twitch. So extending the Twitch integration would be awesome, and it's something that we want to do. Like adding more points for people to vote. Yeah, it's been really great seeing people stream the game and like chat drawing pictures and all of that. We are really fortunate to have had such a great reception. So this is I need to add Ring of Pain dating sim to the under consideration. Who would you want to date, Mini Smurf? Maybe the Skulker? You reckon? Little wormy friend? Wormy Wendy? Maybe the Restless Triad? 3 heads are better than one? The Valentine card's got your mind racing. Yeah, just date a mimic. Oh no. Any plans for potentially adding upgrading places? Upgrading is something that I've thought about in the past. Yeah. I don't know if we'd actually do it. I don't know if it's a good fit for this game. I think upgrading is the kind of thing that you'd need to plan for from the start. So probably not, but maybe some form of it potentially. The problem with adding upgrading to a game like this is that it can pretty much just be stats before it becomes completely overwhelming. Like, we can't make another 180 plus items do something different when upgraded, so it's mostly just like upgrading the stats, and then it becomes even more like roguelite, I guess. And we're also not sure, does that service the game design? Like, replacing items is a core part of the game, and inventory management is a core part of the game, and if you're upgrading certain things, it's like a disincentive to replace that item. And so does it encourage weird player behaviors? Does it actually service what we were trying to do with the game, and the ways, the player behaviors that we're trying to encourage? Are there any plans to add more friends? Yeah, there's a big dog that we need to add. And yeah, I think more friends would be cool. What other friends would you want to see in the game? What other Ring of Pain friends? Maybe a little, like, egg? A little friend egg? Maybe you can, like, do something with the egg. A little pat the egg. Maybe you get, like, a little heating glove, and you just, like, warm the egg until it turns into an actual friend. A bear friend? Bears are scary. Reforging. Put an item in and gives you a choice to keep the item or take one of 2 other items. Yeah, so yeah, that's a good suggestion, Earthman. Something, definitely want more utility, more ways for people to be able to, like, effectively discard but not discard, like a trade up kind of thing would be really cool. So yeah, like a reforge room could be pretty sweet. I think that's a good idea. This is something that I'm going to add to my suggestions list. Egg friend, more friends as well. I need to add. A lot of people are talking about egg friend now. I think egg friend could be good. Hatching a chicken friend. Maybe if you have chicken friend, like, Owl will treat you nicely. All right, so that is some of the general upcoming stuff that we've got planned for you all. Item plus amount of souls equals better item of same rarity. Yeah, that would be cool. Let me I'm gonna share with you all something. I made a little survey to also help get us some thoughts. Let me get this link. I think we're gonna wrap it up, and we've got this survey that we would love people to fill out. I'm going to paste it here in the chat. You can copy paste it. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to roll out. Thanks for joining us, Slice. See you all. And yeah, our team is very excited to share the new stuff with you very soon. Thanks for playing. Catcha.